I could never in my wildest nightmares have ever imagined the horrors that could plague even the most simple of life's enjoyments, the darkness that could invade any world, whether it be real or fictional. It all started the day me and my girlfriend were talking about video games we used to play growing up, and games that we used to enjoy. Over the years of my childhood, I have collected several games pertaining to several different consoles, but we both found the topic of the Nintendo 64 to be the most fun. So that day we decided to pick up one from my uncle's video game store and perhaps even pick up one of the greatest Nintendo 64 titles, Super Mario 64. Now when we got there it took some time and a lot of browsing, but we were able to find the game after about an hour or so in several bins he had placed throughout the store. The only copy he had, it appeared. As well as that, we had found an N64. The very last one that he had in stock, ironically. And best part about it was he gave it to us for free. He told me that it had been bought and returned nearly 15 times since it came into his possession, and now he was just looking to get rid of it. He also told me that, ironically, the game was always returned with it as well, as they always seemed to be bought together. He had heard that something was wrong with one or the other, and that some people even went as far as to tell him that they were evil, made in hell, things like that. Seeing as how he only heard the story from 3 out of 15 customers, I brushed it off as just some hysterical story told by people who decided they simply didn't want to keep the system. An excuse, if you will, and gave him $20 for Super Mario 64. Cheap jerk gave me the Nintendo 64 for free, though. We went back home and after being gone for about an hour and a half. When I got home, I laid the system by my living room TV and started to rummage through old boxes where I kept all sorts of old games, ranging from classic Atari games to the ever-popular Dreamcast. It was actually sort of strange because in these boxes I found that I owned every major console except for an N64. Well, until now anyways. I pulled out my box with all of the N64 games in it and began to dig through it. I found games like The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, as well as its sequel, Majora's Mask, and 2 Castlevania titles for the system itself, and so on. Then, it was time to hook it up. After everything was set up, my girlfriend decided that she wanted to put in Super Mario 64 first. And after some effort, the game was ready to go. "It's me, Mario," it called out in its upbeat pitch. My girlfriend decided to mess with Mario's face a bit before finally pressing start on her purple controller, and the screen transitioned to the file select screen. There are some files already on the game. In fact, all 4 slots were filled, each having just started the game because there were no stars on any file. So we started deleting them. After we deleted one, however, the game froze, and there was a deafening screech coming from our TV speakers, and it sounded almost as if someone was screaming from the game itself. My girlfriend turned off the system after about 5 seconds. After a moment or so, she flipped it back on and we went back to the file select screen. Strangely enough, the file that we had deleted on file 1 was back, and this time it had 66 stars, even though previously it had none. So once more she deleted it, and again it made a loud screeching sound. This time I could swear to God that it was louder than before, to the point where we both fell back while covering our ears. As I was closer to the plug than the system itself, I jerked it out of the wall. This time, before we bothered trying, I took the game out of the system and took it into the kitchen. It turned out that it was really dusty, which explained, at least to me, why the game was reacting the way it was, although it was still weird. After cleaning it with a Q-tip, I took it back into the living room. I handed it to her. She plugged the console back into the wall and we were ready to go. By now it was getting dark out. There was no light in the room and we couldn't plug in our lamp because the system and TV took up the outlet. So we were forced to play in the dark. For me, something didn't feel right, because for some reason I was filled with a sense of nervousness that I could not quite explain. I shook it off and turned on the system. When we were back to the file select screen, each file that was there previously was gone, oddly enough, which to me confirmed my suspicion that it was just a dirty game messing up. So we started a new game on file 1, and the screen lagged like it were a CD or something. But after about a minute, it started up normally. We got the opening scene with Peach inviting Mario to the castle, and the camera, as usual, followed up the pathway to the giant green pipe which Mario leaped out of. She was in control of the game and took Mario directly to the castle. When she opened the door to the castle, there was a prolonged pause which made me nervous. Once again, the loud screeching that ruined our game previously shot through our ears, and it felt like glass was jabbed into my eardrums. We were both overwhelmed because of the terrible screaming and could not even think to reach the system to the plug. After about 30 seconds, it stopped and we looked up to the TV. Mario had somehow found his way to Big Boo's haunt. And the mansion that had never appeared this creepy when I used to play it, it loomed over Mario's head ominously. "What the hell?" I said as I regained myself. My girlfriend was still getting herself together, and it took her a minute to process what was going on. I took the controller now and took a good look at the mansion itself. It was nothing like it was supposed to be. It had castle-like features, actually, and it was covered totally in blood and rust. The sky had black and red colors about it, complemented by the black clouds that seemed to pass by in an instant. I noticed that a new tower was now coming out of the mansion, and upon getting a good look at it, I noticed several figures hanging from it. The whole screen faded to white, like it does in the entrance room when you look up at the skylight and go to the world that you obtain the wing cap in. When Mario reappeared, he had somehow made it on top of the tower, on a platform that went all the way around. The sky had a gloomy look to it as each cloud passed over the tower, as dark as the night sky, and lightning began to rule the sky and illuminate the clouds in its thunderous wake. I tried for the first time to move Mario forward, but a bolt of lightning stopped any movement that I was willing to make at the moment. I dropped the controller. My heart began to race. I didn't know what to expect, and I could see by the look in my girlfriend's eyes that a strong sense of paranoia had overcome her, because I constantly noticed her looking back behind us in the shadows that covered the room. With hesitation, I took the controller in hand and moved Mario forward a bit, about a foot or so before something fell from the top of the screen and the camera zoomed in on it. It was a depiction of Mario, with a noose around his neck. We both yelled out, and I dropped the controller on the floor. I moved back as quickly as possible. Mario's clothes were ripped all over, exposing several parts of his body. Underneath the clothes, we could make out stab wounds from either a knife or a dagger, which more than likely caused the blood splatter all over his skin and remaining clothing. But the most grotesque part of the image were his eyelids and mouth, sewn shut with blood trickling down his cheeks and chin. I was appalled at the gruesome sight. My heart was racing, and I would swear to this day that at the moment the dead Mario fell from the top of the screen that I heard something run into my bedroom. All of the hung figures were of Mario, all the exact same, with eyelids and mouths sewn shut and stab wounds all over their bodies. I worked up all the courage I could muster. I again unplugged the N64, which turned off, but not at that instant. Before the TV screen went black, the hung Mario's face underneath his sewn lips was smirking at us. I didn't want to get up, not even to turn on the lights. I wanted to remain in the exact spot sitting down because at least there I felt somewhat safe. But for my girlfriend's sake, I plugged in the lamp and lit the room up. Everything was peaceful, perhaps a calm after the storm, and I took a deep breath and sat back down. I couldn't get that image out of my head, that smirk. I felt powerless as to what my mind wanted to remain on. I sat on the floor next to my girlfriend and hugged her, picked her up and took her to bed. Who in the hell would make a game like that? It had to be the game. It had to be hacked. It's the only thing that made any sense to me. What I saw in that game, I would define as evil in its sickest form. Without a word between us, we laid in bed for what felt like hours before one of us finally broke the silence. She told me that she wanted to get rid of that game as soon as possible. As it was already late, I decided that it would be best to wait until tomorrow because I was sure that my uncle's store was closed and GameStop doesn't take games that old. So we stayed in bed and agreed that we would not play that game again. But I couldn't get it out of my head still. I wanted to know why or how this was done. My curiosity got the better of me in the end, and after she had fallen asleep, I quietly got out of bed, went back into the living room, plugged in the N64, and didn't turn it on. Didn't have to. The game started itself, and not only that, picked up exactly where it left off. I was astounded by this because I had never seen the Nintendo 64 do anything like that. Right then and there, I knew that there was more to this than I knew, and I had to know what. I was fascinated, drawn in perhaps. I got a good look around the tower. Despite being disgusted, I was morbidly fascinated by the entire scene. The paranoia it could convey was intriguing. After a few minutes of looking around, I pressed the pause button and again the screen faded, this time to black. It took me all the way back to the file select screen, and I found myself with more questions than answers. All the files were back. Again. File 1 had 66 stars, while files 2, 3, and 4 had none. I tried to remember back to when we picked the file, and I was certain that they were not there before. I tried loading file 4 first, and in response, the game showed me a picture of Mario dead in a pool of his own blood, with his eyeballs and entrails hanging out. After a shudder, it allowed me to hit B and go back. I tried loading file 3, and again I got another appalling picture. It was Mario once again staring directly into the screen with bloodshot eyes that looked so close to real that I really thought that they were. His mouth was gaping open and his tongue missing. Well, it was missing from his mouth at least. I examined further and realized that Mario's tongue was wrapped around his throat and that he was being strangled with it. I heard a chuckle of sorts. Not from the game, but it sounded like it was directly behind me. I ignored it against my better judgment. I tried to start up file 2 now, and a video began to play. Mario was strapped down on a table in a decrepit version of the castle's entrance hall. The stones were all black, blood oozing from the cracks between each of them. Curtains that hung from the ceiling were tattered and falling apart. They appeared to be worn with the years. In the background, Peach and Toadstool were strapped to both sides of the door that led to the basement area. Toadstool had the mushroom on his head torn off. I could make out his skull showing through the flesh wound. He was obviously dead. Peach sent me into a state of awe. Her skin was peeled off and all I could see fully formed was her head, which remained untouched. Jesus Christ, I said silently as the video continued. Mario struggled for freedom as a door upstairs opened and a black mass slowly came through. Its footsteps solemnly echoed through the silent hall. The curtains on the ceiling blew casually to its passing as it moved down the steps towards him. Mario pulled and pulled, but found no way to escape the situation that he found himself in. And in response, he began to beg for his life and pray. The black mass inched ever closer to the hero. It seemed as though Mario gave up. The black mass walked around the table and stopped directly in front of Mario. Again, the hero begged, pleaded for his life. He told the Black Mask that he would do anything, only spare him for any crime that he committed against it. I saw a tear roll down Mario's cheek as he closed his eyes tightly. A rope tied around his neck. He gagged and took in only heavy breaths. I couldn't see a hand so much as touch the rope, or where it even came from, but it was indeed there, with just enough slack so that Mario could breathe. Deep lacerations cut through Mario's clothes, and blood by the gallons covered him in a crimson pool. He screamed, begged, pleaded, asked for death, but it was not given to him. Not yet, anyways. The cuts continued until the floor was covered in a dark red liquid exuding slowly to the floor. Finally, the swipes and stabs ceased altogether, and there was a deep, methodical silence that only Mario's gasps of misery filled. Before I could so much as think on what I had just seen, his eyes and mouth were forced shut, and I could see it for myself. A black needle going through both of his eyelids and mouth simultaneously, effectively silencing him, other than his muffled screams. Even more blood came from the flesh wounds and covered up his face. The rope tightened around Mario's neck, although he had made no effort to escape. It was over. After a few short grunts, Mario was silent altogether, with not so much a breath or a movement. His face was terror personified, and even though this is a video game, the pain one would have to endure, the torture, my God. Again, before the screen faded to black, that Mario smirked at me. I sat in silence. The title screen with Mario's head came up on screen. Only, it wasn't the same Mario. The background was all black, and the Mario was the same Mario from the scene that I had just watched. He had that smirk still on. After much debate, I decided to keep going. I went to the file select screen and, with all the courage that my heart could muster, I loaded file 1, 66 stars. The game loaded to a demonic laugh and a black sky filled with blood-red clouds. Repeatedly, I could hear a dark, brooding voice saying, "Game over," like Mario would after you lost all of your lives. The Mario that I was controlling was the same Mario that I had seen killed and on the title screen. Screams, torment, bodies littered the pathway to the castle. The bodies of Peach, several toadstools, and at the end, a dead Bowser, whose head was missing and whose body was impaled on a pike right outside the bridge. I entered the castle and found myself back at Big Boo's haunt. I didn't question it anymore. I just went with it. The scene had not changed, not even slightly, and ignoring all of the graphic details, I entered the mansion to what I was sure would strike my heart in some way, shape, or form. I could feel something circling and enclosing around me. I ignored it. I had to. I needed to know what this was, or what was going on. Something whispered in my ear. I was sure of it. I gulped as the screen transitioned to the entrance hall of Big Boo's haunt. The room with all of the doors. The bodies of faceless Marios were hung all over the ceiling, illuminated only by torches. I could feel sweat trickling down the back of my neck as I saw a standalone figure all the way on the upper balcony. I moved Mario slowly towards it. I was afraid. I'm more than willing to admit that, and have never been more afraid in my life. I jumped up the steps, one at a time, moving cautiously and carefully. It was another hung man, that was for certain, but who it was, I'll never forget. As I reached the body, I hesitated, but zoomed in on it. I began to tremble, my hands barely holding the controller. The figure was indeed a man hung by a rope. That man had his eyes and mouth sewn shut just like Mario and was bleeding profusely from his eye sockets. That man, and all of his pain, was me. He let out a scream, something haunting and bone chilling. A wail like nothing I had ever heard. The screen began to flicker and turn to static. I tried to turn off the system. I tried to unplug it and nothing worked. The TV wouldn't even turn off. I saw my corpse through the static burning as its haunting wail had yet to cease. Mario turned his head 180 degrees and looked at the screen, and with a smirk on his face, let out a wail just like I did. My head began to hurt and throb. I fell to the floor, and the last thing I remembered from that night was seeing a black mass hovering over me. Wow. That is one creepypasta I never thought would actually give me the chills. Like, all that despair and those hesitations in my voice, even now, those are not to upplay the storytelling. Like, they're actually real. Like, you can't see it, but I am actually shaking right now. Like, my whole body, it has tensed up. I am shaking. I feel cold. I'm tired. And what's even worse, it's almost 4 a.m. I'm very tired, and this story, chock full of grammar and spelling mistakes, and just mistakes in general. This creepypasta, despite all of that, is phenomenal purely because I am shaking. Take all the other creepypastas I read on this channel as of right now into consideration. None of those actually have me shake like this one did. Could you imagine playing one of your favorite games from your childhood to just witness all of that in your lonesome? I absolutely couldn't, and if I could, I would feel the anguish and despair that the narrator of the story did. I would absolutely feel like I'm feeling it right now. You could hear it in my voice. I am feeling that right now. And even just watching my footage while I'm talking about this is making me shake. Which, again, is something a creepypasta never really does. I do not scare that easy. And considering that, but what's makes it even scarier is Super Mario 64, as well as the Nintendo 64. The Nintendo 64 was my first ever console I ever owned. And Super Mario 64 was one of the first games I ever played. So reading the story and taking all of that into consideration just makes me feel like next time I load up Super Mario 64, I'm gonna experience something almost like that obviously I'm not going to. But again, I grew up. This is my first console I ever owned as a kid. One of the first games I ever played in my life. Reading this story, it really like gives you that feeling of, I feel like it's going to happen to me the next time I load the game up. So I might have to wait for a while. Obviously, it's not going to happen, but it just makes you feel like that it will. And honestly, again, despite all the mistakes, the grammar, spelling mistakes, as well as the narrator calling Toadsworth Toadstool, which, yeah, when they said Peach and Toadstool, the author meant Toadsworth, because if it was Peach and Toadstool, there'd literally be just either two Peaches or just one of them, because Princess Toadstool is Peach. So, yeah, despite that mistake happening twice, this story is a damn good one. It's absolutely terrifying. And I remember hearing this story when I was not even a teenager. I was like 12 when I heard this story for the first time. It scared me back then. It scares me now. Which, again, is not something that happens easily. So the fact that it's still haunting me, that it's been haunting me for 14 years. And it took me 14 years to finally muster up the courage to read the story myself, despite knowing every single detail that was going to happen. It still fills me with a good fright like that. And that is why this creepypasta is amazing. This creepypasta is absolutely something else. And that is a good thing. But it's whew. I absolutely still... It took me 14 years to finally muster up the strength and the courage to read this myself. And knowing, and I remembered every single detail from the story. After 14 years, it never left my mind. Even though I did finally manage to read it, it will not leave my mind anytime soon. It is permanently burnt into my memory. And it'll never leave. And I feel like for that reason, this might actually be the absolute best creepypasta I have ever read, and probably ever will read. And if there was any creepypasta I could recommend you read it on your own, for yourself, it would absolutely be this one. I am still shaking. Like, I'm still shaking. I am wrapped up in a blanket, and I am cold. I'm cold, I'm shaking, while under a blanket. That's how much the story has mortified me these 14 years. And I will remember all the details of the story for the rest of my life. They will never go away. Like, I still, even every time I loaded up Super Mario 64, whether it be on my own time or making a video for the channel, every time I load up Super Mario 64, this story, this creepypasta, always came to my mind every single time. And every single time from now on, it will proceed to do the exact same thing. It's never gonna leave my memory. No matter how much I try, it will never leave my memory. But, yeah, that's... Whew. What a story. I don't think after reading that, I don't think I'm going to go to sleep. It is 4:06 in the morning. I doubt I'm going to get any sleep after reading that. And even if I did want to sleep, I still have a Melty Blood video I need to work on. I am still not finished with it. I've been working on that Melty Blood video for a week now. I'm still not done with it. Yes, even doing all these other videos on the channel, I have been working on that one single Melty Blood video, and I'm still not done. I'm getting closer to being done with it, but still not done. And considering, like, I doubt I'm going to be getting any sleep after reading that, I might as well continue working on it. But yeah, if you have any other creepypasta you want me to read on Saturday, do let me know. Because the last 2 creepypastas I have planned for the month, they're classics, but not for good reasons. They're classics for all the wrong reasons. But yeah, for Saturday, let me know if you have a creepypasta you want me to read. I'll read it. But until then, thank you for watching. You listening to me read this story and telling you the trauma this story has caused me for the past 14 years. It will proceed to do so for the rest of my life. And thank you for sitting through this whole thing. And I will see you later.